Oh, it's just creaking.
All
Back of my
right.
neck.
I believe we are now live,
Oh
everybody.
no.
We're live.
Hey!
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. Happy coffee break. Um,
Yes.
Good morning, Wayward Witch. Good morning.
Oh,
Uh,
we can't see the chat. Can we? Is there a way for us to see the chat?
You can pull it up on yours.
Okay, let's see if it flags us out too bad. If we get
Probably.
really bad, I'll turn it off because we're rural. Our internet is bad.
oh, okay. Well, we'll
Super.
fingers crossed for it.
Yeah, exactly. Because we want to be able to see the chat, but maybe if we kill video over,
That's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna try
just
that.
make sure that it's not coming through the
Oops.
speakers.
What have I done?
I don't know. What happened?
We all talked about we would bring our best mug today.
Oh yeah.
What did we bring?
Oh, hold on.
Oh, can't
Oh,
read that.
oh.
It's death before decaf.
Very
Mine's
good.
just pretty, like normal people.
It's nice to have a
Pretty.
pretty mug. It's totally fine. Mine says teacher corn, like a normal teacher, but more awesome. And it's a
That's
dabbing
that's
unicorn.
cute.
My partner gave this to me.
I love
I
it.
love it. That's so good.
Okay, I think I got chat up.
You
Did
think
it
you got
work?
chat?
I do.
Excellent.
Maybe.
We'll find out. Well, good
Yeah,
morning,
it'll be fine.
everybody. Happy coffee break to you. For those of you who don't know, coffee break is a weekly hangout I do Sunday mornings to catch up with or connect with my friends in the RPG design scene. I started it because I tried to join a bunch of Discords and then I got overwhelmed and I was like, I can't do this. I just want to talk to people one-on-one. And the point of this show is just to hang out and talk about whatever we want to talk about. This isn't like an interview show. I'm not here to I'm sorry for calling you out on the Discord thing. It's not here to interview you. We're just hanging out and all that stuff. So I'm Spencer Campbell, Aquila RPGs. With me, I have a couple of Drakes. Would the two of you mind introducing yourself to the fine folks at home?
Go ahead, Navi.
Yeah, Navi Drake, and that's Shawn Drake. Together, we are a couple of Drakes. If you guys haven't seen us already, because we're pretty much everywhere because we do games of all genres, that's our shtick. We make games that are just kind of all over the place. If you don't already know us on Twitter, then it's at Navi Musing and at Drake and Dice. And yeah, we don't have like a branded group page because I don't have the ability to manage that much stuff. So I'm like, no, it's just find us individually. So nobody can find us is what it comes down to.
Perfect. Hopefully they can find one of you, and then inevitably then it links you to the other person. So
That's the spirit.
It
Well, we're
works
hopping
out.
all over each other's timelines all the time, so I can't imagine like, hey, these people have the same last name. Maybe we should.
Maybe there's something going on there. I don't know.
That's great.
Maybe.
She's the buttered popcorn, and I'm the steamed broccoli of RPG stuff. I'm good for you, but she's a lot more entertaining.
Junk
Nice. Very good. When my my best friend and I first started to try designing board games years ago. So I tried doing board games before I did role-playing games, and we wanted to come up with a name for our little duo. And we came up with Wizbot, Wizard Robot, because he is a wizard. He's an artist. He's a graphic designer. He's brilliant, creative, wildly entertaining guy, and I'm a robot. I make rules, and at the time, I very much was like, I make rules, and I make good rules, and so like we were like, by our powers combined, we can actually make a single game. We didn't make a single game, but we tried.
Wow.
We sure as hell tried.
Trying that's where you make all the mistakes and learn all the lessons and things. So
Exactly.
But
hats off to trying.
That's exactly how we function because like it's not a joke, but it is kind of a joke that like we tell everybody that he often will come to me with like a pile of very beautiful poetry and prose, and there's some notation about mechanics in there, like how dice might work, and he hands it to me. And I look at it and go, babe,
You need to explain what this means.
this isn't a game. So
You can't play this. It's fun to read, but you can't play
Right.
this.
So it's my job to take all of that beautiful yes, and then actually make it so that people could read it and go, oh, there's rules and I can play this.
I can
Mostly she
engage
does-
with this.
She does that by interrogating me about what the hell this
So
means.
what is this? Every time I come to a part where I can't understand,
This is in bold. It must be important. What does it mean?
Explain yourself, Sean. What did you do?
What is fade? What happens when you fade?
There's something
Bolded,
about 3 elephants and
italicized.
D6.
It says you get an extra die. What kind? What shape? What?
Just any old, whatever you're
grab one.
feeling in the moment.
Do it.
Just take 2 of any color and roll them. It's great.
I love that. I love that. I mean, how long have the two of you been making stuff together then? Because you've obviously built like your out. Well, first of all, I eventually want to talk about your output because you put out so much stuff, and I need to know how you do that. But before we talk about that, like, how long have you been designing stuff together?
Do we want to go creating stuff together or designing stuff together?
Yeah, that's an important distinction because we've been writing together for ever. It's ever, right?
How old am I?
I don't know.
I think it's coming up on 15 years. I'm not sure.
It might be longer actually.
Wow.
But in any case, we've been writing together for about, I think it's 17. Hang on, I have a bracelet that tells me when. Doesn't it?
No,
no, it doesn't
that's
anymore.
something
Okay,
else.
that's a different thing. But
Time bracelet.
I think that was our anniversary. I'm just not sure.
yeah. Oh, right. Okay. That's good.
But,
I'm pretty sure it's 17
it's
years.
been a long time. No, but we started designing games really 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Because last year, before this year, we were working on Court of Blades, and that was really what we were doing. We didn't do a lot of game design. We were getting to know people, and we were working on Court of Blades, and we weren't designing much else. We had a couple projects that were like small, half thought of, that were kind of stuffed in a desk. I don't count those. So like Court of Blades was all last year, and then we put out some score packs for Blades in the Dark, and people were excited about those, and that was really fun. And then all of a sudden this year, it just kind of became a thing. So everything else has really come out this year. Like every game that we've put out was just this year. I think we've been doing probably a game every 2 months or something like that.
Something like that.
It feels like it. Like sometimes it feels like every 2 weeks. Like I'm looking at like, wait a minute, didn't they just release something?
So that's actually my fault because my workflow. I have to have about 3 or 4 projects happening at once because when I get tired of something, I just stop and grab something else, and that's my how I keep myself sane and I don't burn out on anything. So sometimes it just happens to be that I finished 2 projects at once that could have been spaced out, and I'm like, just push them out, it'll be fine.
Oh, but we're excited about them, so let's go ahead and get them out.
I follow like, oh, Clover saw something outside she doesn't like. I follow like a similar thing where I've got like 3-ish projects that I need to like bounce around between because like I'll just burn out on one. I can't stay on one for too long. I gotta jump off to something else. So talking to you, I've talked to a few people now, here just in general, and the concept of I started about 2 years ago feels very universal to everybody I've talked to so far. Is this idea of I started doing game design about 2 years ago, because that's around when I first started doing RPG design as well.
It was a good year.
It was. What else are you gonna do?
Like, was that kind of it for you? Because that was it for me. That was the thing where I was like, I've always wanted to design this sort of stuff, and like I guess now I kind of have the time to do it. So like, let's just do it. And so that's how, like, that was my pushing point. Is that like how it was for you as well? Did you experience the same thing?
So I've been basically I've been homebrewing, I guess is the pejorative term for it these days, I think. But I've been putting together my own little systems and things like that to plug into other games since the moment I sat behind a screen. But I think that Court of Blades was our first big project because we played Blades in the Dark and we're like, oh, this is really cool. And then we had a friend who was, I'm kind of bouncing off the theme and the tone and everything. Can we do something a little bit, I don't know, more romantic and treacherous and political and
which
things
tragically underserved, by the way, in the TTRPG community. Try looking for a romantic political game. It's not easy. So
sure,
yeah.
But we focused fire on that, and it felt really good to have a big project. And it was a fan hack for the longest time, and we're like, this probably won't go anywhere. Then we looked down at we tried to get it play tested. This was the tipping point for me. Our weekly group, I pitched a whole bunch of different games, and then they
I'm still here. My camera just died. I'll figure it out.
We're doing it live. damn, what was I saying? Ah, right. So we tried to get it play tested. I pitched a whole bunch of games to our weekly group, and they're like, "Hey, weren't you working on a thing? Can we hear about that?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, sure. Here, I'll send you the document." And they're like,
This is a whole ass game.
"This is a book. Like, you have a book here." And we're like, "Oh yeah. Oh, damn it. Yeah, yeah. Okay." And at that point, we're like, "Okay, we should probably do something with this. This is way too big to table." Because before that, all of our projects, all my projects certainly, and the ones that we had done together were smallish type things.
Yeah, the hacks that stayed hacks. They didn't have so many new and unusual rules that they would require their own manual, right?
Yeah.
That was really the problem we ran into with Court of Blades, is that after a certain point, there were so many extra mechanical things that had integrated into the system that you could no longer call it a hack, because if you looked at it by itself and then looked at Blades in the Dark, you wouldn't really be able to play it. It needed a lot more explanation. So that's kind of the tipping point where we're like, okay, this is an entire game.
But the reason why it became an entire game was, yes, we had a lot of time on our hands, and so we just kept noodling, and eventually it was huge. And so that's how that started.
And our main group was all like, why aren't we playing your game? That was a big thing too, because our normal weekly group wanted to play it, and that kind of pushed us to really take the time to do the play testing necessary to make a game of that size, because the bigger a game is, the more fiddly bits there are. You got to do a lot more play testing, and there's a lot more to review and edit. It's crazy. I like smaller bite-sized games. I've discovered, like, you can really they're fun. You
just
crank
throw it
them
out.
out.
It'll be fine.
Now we're just chasing that feeling that that hey, this is a thing, and you can play it.
Right.
Just getting that in front of people.
Yeah. No longer trying to impress anybody. I'm just like, have fun.
Just, if it's broken, it's broken. Whatever, go have fun. It'll be fun anyway. Who cares?
Exactly.
Hey, you fix most of the games that you run anyway. So.
Exactly. I have, I've been working on this Nova faction turn thing, and it's reminding
I'm excited for that.
Oh, thank you. It reminds me of when I used to try to design board games, because board games require like a ridiculous amount of playtesting, because they can't be like open to interpretation as much. So like, and essentially the Nova Faction Turn is a board game that I'm making that like supplements a role-playing game. So I'm suddenly like, oh right, I have to like make sure this is like works, this functions, because normally I just like release things on faith that my players will figure it out, and this is like, no. I have to actually like word this in a way that makes sense, and that has been a challenge, but a fun new challenge.
So what's your favorite board game?
Oh my god.
I know,
my
right?
God, how could you do this to me?
This is how I figure out like where you're skewing mechanically.
So, I think my favorite, and I continue to, I probably have mentioned it every time somebody asks me about Slayers, is Root. Root is one of my favorite games.
Good call.
You can see where my love of asymmetry comes from when from Root, and every single time you play it, you can have a totally different experience. You just pick a different faction, and then you're like, oh, this game is a totally new game for me, and yet it is familiar at the same time. We're still in the same space. We have the same goal, get those victory points, but how you get the victory points is entirely different for you. And then like, even if you play the same faction every single time, who is playing the other factions also changes. Like, if nobody's playing the cat, like that wildly changes the setup of the forest, for example. So I love Root. Probably is my favorite board game.
So are your factions in that case in Nova like playing into that asymmetry?
No, not so much, because I wanted to keep this light. It's not a big board game.
Okay.
I there's the part of me that says just do it, just make the full big thing and just figure it out. But I'm making it. I want it to be more so a supplemental tool for people. So keeping it light as a thing that like a table can kind of casually do between Nova sessions is like do a little faction turn. I also needed to keep it like not complex enough, because I intend on using this to do a community scale event of Nova, where I do like this West Marches thing where whoever wants to play that week on stream will play Nova, and then like everybody in the community gets divided up into one of the enemy factions, and you're all scheming in your Discord channels together, like, what do we want to do with the board this week? And if it's like really complicated, I can't possibly run that. So I gotta keep it simple, gotta keep it streamlined.
I only ask because I've got preliminary design down for Court of Thrones, which still the cheeky working title for the Court of Blades supplement, where you're playing the actual members of the noble house. And I wanted all of the various roles to feel slightly different, and it's got a little bit of that board gaminess in that everybody has a victory condition, like one of your nobles can win at the detriment of the other nobles.
Right.
And I was wondering if you had insight as to how much asynchronicity, how much not asynchronicity, that's a time thing, asymmetricalness, asymmetry, that's it. That's how you say that in English. Something or other, just fold it in there. How much asymmetry is too much, I was thinking like a move or two, or maybe a different currency to spend or something like that.
I mean, for me, I'm all about the more the better. Like I truly think like I think everybody should be playing a different game at the table, and that's very cool at the same time.
More is more.
Yeah, like, I did it a bit with Slayers. I could lean harder into it, but I dig asymmetry. So if you pack it full of that, I'm gonna be like, you did the right thing. You made the right call.
Oh no! And here I come with my big red pen. I'm so the opposite. Just let's put it in perspective. My favorite board game is Risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everything has to be controllable, and so that your strategic moves make a huge difference. That's how I attack everything. So I'm listening to this, and I'm like,
it's gonna be a Baroque nightmare.
Oh, it's gonna be so broken. It's gonna be so unbalanced, and it's gonna be beautiful because of it.
But that's what she's for, because I come at her with like this huge pile of interesting fiddly mechanics, and she's like, do we really need this many resources? I don't think we do.
Well, no, because that's the other thing. I also try to keep everything as quick and deliverable as possible. So at the table, it needs to be fast. I don't want anybody to have to do an excessive amount of paperwork. And that was actually a big challenge in something like Court of Blades. So that's something else I do attack as well, is just my big red marker. No resources. We're not micromanaging this. We're focusing on this.
Yeah.
So I'm the killjoy. I'm discovering that's what it is. I'm here to kill happiness.
You are a thief of joy.
That was my role in Wizbot. Is like Mike was like, "What if we did this wacky fun thing?" And I was like, "That would ruin the balance of the entire game. We can't do that." And now somebody's got to do that. Like, well, it's so funny now because I'm not designing board games anymore. I have become like Mike. I have now been like, what if I just did this weird thing and it didn't make any sense, but who cares? Because it would be fun to have it. And so now I've changed. I understand and appreciate Mike's perspective now that I've relieved myself of board games.
This is actually like a venue where that is a merit rather than a detriment, right?
Right. True.
More wacky stuff to get involved with.
Mm-hmm.
There was a good question that somebody had earlier. They wanted to hear about, let me see if I can find it, the JRPG hex game that you're making now, which
Lord.
I'm not familiar with. So now that, the second I saw that, I was like, well, I also need to know more about
now
this.
I need to know that. Okay, well, that one's super early. Oh, are you going to go ahead? All right.
I'm just laughing.
So that one's super early in development, and it's probably going to be like our next big title. Like Court of Blades scale title.
Okay.
But it's right now kind of leaning into a proprietary dice system that we're starting to play around with. Big piles of dice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to have a lot of kind of the things that we loved about JRPGs growing up, especially Navi's eternal love for Legend of Mana, in which case you could slowly build the world out from like your primary center. And so it's going to have procedural hex generation. It's going to be classless. You adopt jobs based on what kind of gear you're wearing, and it's going to have a lot of kind of teamwork maneuvers and things like that. They're going to be kind of reminiscent of like Chrono Trigger. And then we're looking at right now a frontline backline style combat. So it's going to be fairly quick and not a lot of like tactical maneuvering, but moving around within your frontline backline to face off against like the optimal opponent and things like that.
Yeah, I'd rather have you have more out of turns is my thing. I hate when not to bash on D&D, but I played a lot of
You're in a
D&D. That's how I
safe
grew up,
space.
right?
It's
It's the
okay.
safe
Yeah.
place for that.
So one of my biggest beefs is when it's not your turn, you're just sitting there like in pain.
Mhm.
So rather than worrying about your individual positioning and moving around the board, I think it's more interesting to focus all of the attention onto, without having to move around and think about that, what can you do outside of your turn in order to help your teammates? So there's going to be a lot of abilities to offer teamwork moves and also cast certain abilities and spells out of your natural turns so that there's still room for teamwork within each person's turn. So if you see a teammate who's struggling, you can get in there and help. So that's something we're tinkering with that I'm really excited about, because combat in a lot of games that are combat heavy can be a slog. So that's what we're moving away from.
And you'll be pleased to know that we're tinkering with beats as well.
Yes. Yes. Beats in every game. All games need
Beats in every
beats.
game. Bears beats.
That's all we need. I'm excited about that because in a lot of games that I play, when I used to play like a lot of computer games with friends, back in grad school, I would always play a support character. I like being a support character, which meant like in a D&D type thing, if I wanted to play like a support character, it doesn't scratch the same itch as being a support character in like a more dynamically moving game. Like, so we played an unreasonable amount of League of Legends when I was in grad school. And I loved being support because I was like always constantly tinkering and trying to help out the people that I was working with.
Good support's clutch.
Well, but like you describing like finding opportunities for people to help the team when it's outside of your turn, that as like for me as like a support main, that's making me get really excited, because support main as in a D&D capacity is like being a cleric who does like one thing during your turn, like cast a bless or healing, and then you're like, well, I'll just wait and see what everybody else needs. Like, and now, this is good.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yep, it's the thing that probably has us the most excited right now. Like I'm working on Dark Bargain still, the Warlock solo journaling game. So we've got that going on. What else we have?
Dead Belt co-op.
We have Dead Belt co-op in the works.
PvP and co-op.
Well, yeah, it's two sides of the same coin there.
Ooh, really?
Well, I feel like co-op. Okay, when I say co-op, I usually mean that you get to work together, and then PvP is all antagonistic. So maybe that's not the technical term, but I
no, that's the technical term. It's just that the line between co-op and PvP is how big is the payday. Right. So anyway, Betrayal and Capital Ships are coming.
Hell yeah.
And then we got other irons in the fire. We always have irons in the fire. But really right now we're kind of buckled down on last finishing touches to Quarter Blades before it goes to print this next month.
I just sent out for the physical proof. It's still missing a few pieces of artwork, but I wanted to check the alignment, of course, of the cover and just make sure the pages, the gutter is good. You know, that kind of stuff, the technical stuff.
That's why I did that with Nova too. I was like, even if the art or whatever the word, like it wasn't like fully edited yet, but I was like, I just need to know, generally speaking, have I put things in the right places? Because I'm not about to go order hundreds of books and get a cover that's all askew.
Off center. That's my worst nightmare. I've seen it happen. Like somebody's showing their book and they're so proud, and the cover is so off center that I'm just like, I can't. I have OCD. Now. I have OCD and I can't deal with it.
Yep. So we paid an unholy amount of money for an unfinished copy of our book.
Oh yeah, proofs are
just for like
$100.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like $100 for one book. I'm like,
That's okay, because now we're gonna have this cool like physical artifact of our struggle, which is nice.
I have since added that to the budget of every Kickstarter I run. There's at least like $100 to $200 on like I'm gonna order at least one or two proofs depending on if I'm getting like paperback and hardcover, or like just in case I need to do a second proof before I feel truly comfortable.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as I was looking at because I'm actually usually my attention detail is pretty good. Like I had a spreadsheet of every single expense. Proofs was not on that, so it's a good note. Like, do be aware of how expensive proofs really are. Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, we were going with Mixam now, right? Instead of Smith Print. We had a local printer here who was excited to work with us, but in the midst of everything, they blew our budget way out, and so we went back to Mixam. which is unfortunate because I really would have liked to drive down and just be like, hey, I need a proof.
Yeah,
real
it's nice
quick.
to have
Right.
a working relationship with someone, but it's nothing against Mixum because the reason Mixum can keep their prices low while still being based in America, of course, is
This is what we do.
they focus in on a certain thing, and when you order huge amounts of material, we all know it gets cheaper. So your local printer who prints everything is never going to be able to compete with the
Right.
printer who prints just books, right? So
Yeah.
Mixum is fantastic, and they've done a lot of work for the community, and I know that. There's been some issues with their zines lately. I've seen some stuff, some dirt there, but
I had a huge fight with Mixum
I
last
know,
year.
I heard.
But
what happened there? Like, what are the dirty details?
so basically, they sent me. This was for my Dust Kickstarter, my zine supplement for Slayers, and
Which is awesome.
well, thank you.
Mhm. We have
and-
all your stuff.
oh, oh,
we bought the big bundle, so
oh, thank you. So basically, they sent it to me, and I have a copy, like a real copy, right here. Right? This is a real copy, or is this one of the bad? No, this is one of the bad copies. This is one of the bad copies. So the inner cover is not printed, which is where like
it's supposed to be.
all the credits, like
Yeah.
the dedication, but most importantly, the back inner cover wasn't there, and that's where the hex map is. Like
Oh,
that's where
gosh.
the map of Dust is, and it just wasn't there. So that already was like, well, you misprinted it. But then my real problem was they sent me a box that had, I don't know, 300 of these loosely thrown in. So normally they do a really good job of like shrink wrapping them and packing them in like packets of 20 or so. There were just a bunch of loosely thrown in zines. So like a bunch of them were all bent and like messed up, and like they eventually reprinted it for us. But like it took more convincing than it should have to been like, you sent me a box of loose zines. Even if it wasn't misprinted, you should do something about that. But on top of that, you're missing like 2 really important pages to this book, so I need that. I need them all over again. The problem.
I wonder.
So for me, just personally speaking, if I print zines, I go to Jukebox now. Jukebox is my go-to. But they don't do books. That's the thing. So
Right.
Jukebox has the same sort of like setup as Mixum in terms of like the online quote maker by you plug in and you change all your parameters and everything. Their quality is fantastic, but they have a page count limit. They like stop at 48 pages. So
no.
That's a little tight.
yeah, so like Nova is 80 pages, and like you can ask them to do more or like to try and do books, but they don't really do books. And so they're like, they'll give you a quote, but it's nowhere competitive anymore. Exactly like you said, like Mixum does this, which means their price is going to be easily the best price you're gonna find out there. So
Yeah.
my zine go-to is Jukebox. That's my tip of the day.
That's a good tip.
I know. I'm over here like, hold on, I must Google.
That's a real good tip.
But again,
I'm gonna beg you for a link later.
it's for like if you're doing like a zine, like a small like small scale sort of thing, because I'm pretty sure they cap off at 48 pages.
I honestly don't know if even our small zines can be pushed in
Like Skyworthy.
Yeah, Skyworthy could.
Yeah, Skyworthy could.
Because Hedge is like 60.
64,
Yeah.
65.
And then another 60 for the
Hearth,
the expansion, right?
Yeah, that's a 2-book set right there, or one big mega book.
Well, I mean, we still owe the community 10 more Courts of the Fae, so I've got those.
We have them outlined. I just haven't gotten written up
that's
yet.
another iron in the fire.
You got so many. You got
I know.
the eternal flame going on over.
Well, that's the thing.
Drake's
Like
house.
if you can't keep the fire up, like then it flickers and you risk it just dying out altogether. And I can't have that.
Can't have
Yeah,
that.
we have a to-do list. It's like 10 miles long. I have like priorities. Like I have like little tags at the top that say where it is on the priority list. And then there's like 10, 20 projects and like vague ideas for projects are down toward the bottom.
Yep.
Like question mark, a lot of question marks and
Well,
like red text.
anything in red and bold is what I'm working on today.
Right.
You know, and if it's under like priority, then like I know that I need to probably probably get that done.
Actually, I want to know more about that. And a few folks have talked about this in chat and wanted to know about like generally like what your workflow is like, because it's working with two people, so that's definitely different than like for me working solo. But I am curious because like how do you like track the projects you're working on? For me, I've been doing I took somebody's advice of making a personal Discord, so it's just me in there and it's got all
Yeah.
my channels for my games, because it's where I just type my inane ideas as I have them, and then they eventually get moved over to a Google Doc.
I saw you talk about that, and I thought that was such a rad idea that we've been kicking around that. And I also saw someone else had set up like a Trello just to show
Yeah.
their different. I thought that was really cool too. But we currently just have like a Google Doc that has really crappy notes.
We have several Google Docs, and I have a Notion
Mm.
that I kind of set up a schedule for. Excuse me. Typically, like workflow is like angry bursts of productivity. Like I'll sit down, like I call myself a professional word puncher, because like it's done with like spite and anger when I sit down and actually do things, because I have to get them out of my head because they're real loud. We usually start off like our days kind of like this, where we sit down and we have a thing, a stumbling block, an idea, something that came to us over the course of the night. We have our coffee. Usually it's in the kitchen though, so I'm there making coffee, pouring coffee, and she either turns around and gives me like the I had a thought face, or like she sees that I've got my standard, like as I'm making coffee, I get like this kind of furrowed brow,
I was thinking,
looking into the middle distance. She's like, you have your pondering face on. And then I say something, or she says something, and then we just kind of pull it apart for the next half hour to an hour as we are getting through the coffee. And then I'll sit down and start punching words. Usually she'll be formatting whatever it is that we punched out last time. When I have questions or have run up against something that I can't quite puzzle out, I'll ask her to like sanity check whatever it is that I'm thinking through.
Yeah, I think our workflow was different. Like last year when we were working on Court of Blades, the workflow was really messy because we hadn't figured out how best to even work together. So we didn't have a workflow. So if you watched most of our interviews back then, we were always like, everybody does everything, because we didn't actually know where to push certain tasks off.
Division of labor was non-existent.
It didn't exist. This year we've gotten much better and more efficient. So it kind of shakes down to, I think, roughly, and there's always cheating either way, but we'll have an idea. Or I'll spitball some ideas like the JRPG thing until he finally until it's like brain worms, and he's all like, okay, we're gonna do it. And I'm like, yes. So I will spitball ideas together, but I usually just throw, as he's working on stuff, I just throw ideas out. And so I'm like yelling from across the room, oh, and add this feature. And so he does a lot of that. And then at some point, it usually comes back to me, and then it's my job to make sure that it's gameable. I do the analytical part of making sure that people understand the rules, that they're written out very, keeping the tone, but also making sure that it's playable. You can read it, you know what you're supposed to do. So my job is kind of the boring, making sure part, that like the writing the rules out is my part. But yeah, I've given most of the writing to him these days. And then when it comes back to me, and I write in the parts that I have to write in for clarity. That's what I do. So I've fully become like the analytical brain, and I've made him the creative brain, aside from me yelling from across the room.
Well, yeah, because when I forget to create a thing and it's important to you, it's cool that she's there to be like, hey, this is, as a player, this is a thing that I want. Because I usually run games, and she usually plays them.
Right.
So she's like my player sniff test. Like, hey, does this feel cool enough? Does that look like a thing that you would like? Ooh, I want that, So that's usually like she was a, God love her, when we were putting together Dead Belt, because it's a solo game, but I was reading all the prompts to her in like my kind of goofy down country drawl. Whale belter, this one could be a bad one. And
you should record like an audio version of this so that people can play you reading the prompts out while they're reading, because I would pay top dollar for that.
I thought about it. I can't wait to make like a game trailer for it, because that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, so when we're play testing anything, like I'll read to her and she'll play through them and feel the mechanics out, and at the end of it I'll have pointed questions like, okay, so how did that feel tense enough? Was that were you interested and engaged the entire time? And okay, looks like you died in space there. Did it feel okay to die in space? Are you willing to do it again?
Great
Or like,
question.
oh, it's great. It was phenomenal dying in space.
That was actually a fun one to work on. That was our first co-op, or not co-op game. We turned it into co-op in that he was reading me all the prompts, but I guess it was a solo game. But it was really interesting to work on because we can do all of the play testing ourselves at the
Yeah.
table. I mean, at some point it has to be released into the wild, and other people are going to find things that you missed. But it was really a lot of fun for that reason, because I would play through it and I'd be able to spot instantly what didn't feel right and what felt good, and we'd go back and iterate instantly. So the that what's the word I'm looking for? Like the ability to move very quickly between iterations
Yeah.
felt really good as a designer, because often we have to wait around weeks to get our group together to do a play test so we can iterate. And this was just like, no, afternoon, and then by the evening we're already iterating again. So
fail
cool.
fast,
Yeah.
fast, and fix faster, right? So
that's nice. I've missed having that. We used to, in the before times,
in the long ago,
right? We would every Sunday morning gather at my friend's place, and we would do brunch. We would just make food and play games or talk about design. And so we were always play testing. We knew that we had a thing that we, like a group that would test something once a week. So it was nice having that, so you could test on Sunday morning and then like go live your lives, or you know, update things throughout the week, and then you'd come back next Sunday and either play the new thing or try somebody else's thing. And I've missed having that so much. You know, it's
I need that in my life.
Oh yeah, no, I wish if the world ever gets back to normal,
one day,
one day we can all like hang out again. That'd be great.
you know, trying to put together like, and so I've been doing, you know, playtesting stuff with people online, and that's fine, but it's just, it's so different than being able to be sitting there at the table, like watching somebody react to the game and like in that moment. It's just, it's different, and I miss it so much.
Yeah, you don't feel the energy as much. But a big problem for us is the rural internet. It can be brutal. It's so frustrating to have our internet cut out constantly. In the mornings, it actually works out a little bit better because it's not as congested yet, we find. So this is a perfect time for us to be able to like hang out and chat. But most people don't want to play games in the morning. And like I said before, I'm an afternoon person. I'm usually toast anyways in the morning. I'm just not a morning person. So it's just bad timing all around.
Yeah.
Well,
God,
I work from home some days of the week, so next time you need like an early morning playtester, just like knock on my door, because I'll just be sitting here with Clover anyway, and I'll be like, yeah, sure, why not? There was another question in here, and I'm curious about this too. So Wayward Witch asked, you seem to design for many different design spaces or like systems, so like Forged in Dark, Lumen, Lost and Found. How do you do it? Is their question. I was just
looking at that.
How do we do it?
Yeah, I was about to ask that, bring that up as well, because I saw it earlier, but I couldn't find a good place to bring it in.
We got there.
How do we do it? Like, I mean,
we like games.
Yeah, that's mostly it.
And like, if you find a game that's really fun, I mean, I think the next thing we do is we go with an SRD.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, can we mess with this now? Because that's kind of where we are in our game design. Is that, I mean, I guess with the JRPG, it's the first time we're doing a proprietary system, but we like working on other people's systems that already work and are already fun. Like Lumen was like the best combat system that I had ever seen. And after playing D&D for so long, I'm so mad at combat heavy games. So
that's the thing. Like,
it didn't take much to sell me on Lumen.
We were I remember this was one of those times I was planting at the time, and you asked, okay, so if you had to make like a D20 system, what would you make? And so I floated the idea of like Hedge, because the idea had been like kind of nascent for a while, like this whole kind of biopunk, nature punk. I hate the punks, but anyway, punks. But this kind of like weird fairy apocalypse had been living rent free in my head for a while, and I just sort of spooled it off to Navi, and she's like, "Man, that's going to be a lot of work." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is, but I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make this cool, flavorful thing." And then I got to the point where I had to like make spells. And like decide what like a character class progression for each of my wardens was going to be, and I'm like, this is awful. Like, this is torture. I don't want to play anymore. I'm taking my ball and going home. And so it just sat there in the Notion, like judging me for about 6 months. And then I saw the Lumen Jam, and I'm like, okay, well, this this seems interesting. Like I liked Light, and I remember the whole awfulness of Frame.
Don't we
But you know
all?
what? Yeah, right.
Oh.
God, my heart breaks. But damn fanboys. But I opened up the Lumen document. I'm like, this is really well thought out. Like, I think that we might be able to. Hey, hon, I think I found a home for my wayward idea, and that's what we do. Like, I poke around anytime anybody releases an SRD. The very first thing I do is I open it up and I think to myself, okay, now if I was going to build this game, what would I do with it?
Mm,
How can I leverage this particular SRD to create an experience that like I'm hungering for,
right,
that hasn't been served yet, or hasn't been hit quite right in my estimation.
right.
My horrible, what's the word? Hubris laden point of view. And then we pick it apart and we take it down to its bare elements, and we're like, okay, now what do we have to add to make it do the thing that we want it to do? And
Yeah.
that's basically where the game design part comes in. Otherwise, we're basically just taking cool SRDs and layering on meat and muscle until eventually that skeleton is a
Oh,
living,
yeah.
functioning thing.
Mhm.
That's how we do it, I guess.
That's
Just
awesome.
draw the rest of the damn owl.
Yes.
There's
Perfect.
another question that's pretty good. They were asking as far as like the tone and feel of our games that remains consistent. Is that something we consciously work on, or a product of our shared preferences?
Do what now?
I have
Like
so
tone-
I have
Good
so
shit.
noticed this. Like,
Mhm.
so
We have a tone.
Dice Ghost mentioned this, and I remember, I fell in love with Hedge and Hearth, and then Dead Belt, reading that and going, oh, this is clearly, like, they clearly wrote this. Like, for me, like, it just came so, even though they're wildly different games, different, like, obviously systems, but also just premises and everything, I was like, oh no, this is clearly a Drake production right here.
Oh.
So,
Well, that's good.
but I think, like, Dice Ghost brings up a good point then. Like, is that something that you think of? Yes, and also visually, that's a good point too. Like, I recognize, like,
It's
this
something.
style.
I would say that it's something that we did natively and innately, because again, reaching back to Court of Blades, I keep going back to that because that was our
Yeah.
first big one. It was all last year, right? So we just innately kind of we wanted to stay on tone and whatnot, but so much of the game did still have like the SRD in it, and then we had to reflavor the SRD, and it was just a lot of work. But I think we've become more and more and more as time went on. Like every time we do a new game, I feel the improvement in like clarifying our tone and our vision. Again, because like that is it is actually a conscious choice that we make to make sure that everything stays on tone. I even want the boring rules that I have to write to match the tone of the creative parts, so that you don't get bored when you're reading. It's important to me because I bounce off of things that I get bored with really
Stereo
fast.
instructions.
Stereo instructions. I hand them to him and tell him to translate for me because I just lose interest, and it's a shortcoming of mine. But I don't want that to happen to other people. So it is a conscious decision to stay on tone. And often with visuals, it's funny when we do our zines, our small games, our early releases that are still in development. We don't do them with an art budget, so we can't go to an artist and say, "Hey, draw the thing that is in my head." So I tend to stay very flexible because the layout and art direction is my job. I stay really flexible with the vision, and basically I'll just go to my favorite stock websites
Yeah.
and I'll look for things pertaining to what I think the tone of the game is until I lock in on something that works, and then I just drill down on it. So
Gotcha.
that's how we handle that, and why it seems like the art matches the system is because I stay flexible. But sometimes we have a game that's so specific that you can't really find art for it.
Yeah.
And that's where sometimes it gets a little challenging.
But tone across games, like I had no idea. I guess it's just how I write, is that kind of poetic and intensely creepy. Like
Mhm.
I think that's a
That's,
very good descriptor of it. But like it's, exactly like Navi was saying, the idea of getting like bored or disengaged with rules, like I do that too. I bounce off things if they're not like immediately compelling for me to read. And so like that's why it's really easy for me to read your games, because they are compelling to read. I'm like, "Oh, this has been written in a way that makes me want to keep like even though I'm learning rules, I want to know more about these rules.
It took me 6 months, no kidding, to get through Burning Wheel,
Yeah,
and I never want anybody to have to go through that. Who doesn't enjoy that? Don't get me wrong.
right.
Burning Wheel's a very fine game,
Very
but
nice qualities.
has very nice qualities. But like it's stereo instructions throughout most of the book. It was written. It feels like it was written by an engineer for engineers,
Right.
and I want I want this to be a game that is by people who enjoy fiction for people who enjoy fiction, so that they can go forth and create more and compelling fiction.
Yeah. That's, that idea of like stereo instructions, it does remind me of like not only like games, but like
Mhm.
SRDs as well.
Oh
Because
yeah.
they're
Mhm.
like I am obsessed with the resistance system. I love
Yes.
it. Made famous by Spire and then Heart later on, and they released the Resistance Toolkit. I think that's what toolkit or toolbox,
Mhm.
whatever it is. It's their SRD. But Grant and Chris wrote it in such a way that it is interesting to read. It's
It's
like
engaging. Yeah.
exactly. It's like they're sitting down and talking to you about what the system is supposed to be good at or what it is good at, and also like it probably doesn't do this very well, just so you know,
Yeah.
but we're not
So
sure.
acknowledging shortcomings in an SRD is actually really helpful to me,
And
because that shows me where I'm going to have to do work if that has to be in the game.
right, exactly. And like that candid like the candid way that it was written is very, I like that. And I've looked at, other SRDs. Like I also love Blades in the Dark. It's probably the game I've run the most in my life. But admittedly, the Blades SRD is not
It's not
great.
friendly.
It's not friendly. It's not. And
So
like,
there's a difference between like opening up like a bench manual for like a I don't know a V6 and looking through and seeing how all the parts work, and it's important. It's very important to know
right,
how all those function. But getting somebody to walk you through, strip it down, and like basically spin yarns about like how this particular part has failed and what it does to the rest of the engine is a lot more engaging, and it'll stick with you longer than just the gear two goes into whatever, right?
Mhm.
right. Yeah. So like, I think that's why your games have a tone that I recognize and that I like, is because I see it's a similar sort of approach in writing rules that I see in other things that I immediately get captured by, where I'm like, okay, this is written by somebody who wants me to know how the thing works, but also wants me to know a little bit more about why it works and things like
No, keep
that.
reading, please.
Yeah, just keep on going, another page, and like
Follow
I
me through this.
I feel that when reading your stuff, which is very cool. I just wanted to also echo what Dice Ghost was saying, because your tone is awesome.
Thank you, Spencer, and thank you, Dice Ghost.
A lot of the somebody saying a wayward witch is a lot of the Blades in the Dark community has expanded on the hacking stuff. Lots of advice on the Discord. That's I tried doing a Forge in the Dark game many moons ago,
Many moons.
and then it became a Resistance game because I was like, nah, I'd rather just do Resistance.
Yep.
But I should look into that, because there is always that part of me that wants to go back and do a little bit of Forge in the Dark stuff, but I haven't
We've
thought
done
about like how the design is
Yeah.
changed. You've done a few.
Yeah,
yeah, we've
we've
done
done
a
three.
few.
Four.
But we've gotten better at the more you work with it, I think the better you get at figuring out what
Yep.
parts are expendable.
Mm,
Like this is I don't expect this is in most people's wheelhouses. This is my teenage girl self coming out, but I think our best work with the Forge and Dark system was actually Disaster Piece. We stripped it down a lot, and like it's you really see the bare bones of what's necessary to put down and put together a Forge in the Dark game. I think best in that game, and not to like brag, but
do
like
it,
people have said
brag.
that like it's their favorite Forge in the Dark game because it's the easiest to understand. They can pick it up really quickly and they understand the entire system in just 60 pages. You don't need 500 pages to understand Forge in the Dark, right? So it does get easier the more you do it and you start tearing it down to its essential nature. But you're absolutely right. When you pick up that SRD, all the pieces are there. All the pieces that made Blades in the Dark exist in the SRD. And
Right.
it's very challenging to figure out what parts you can remove. And we struggled with that initially with Court of Blades. Like, what parts can we move? And I think at first we were like, well, let's just replace instead of
Yeah.
removing. And it took a
Right.
while before we're like, no, this whole system, just take it out.
Well, eventually, to go back to the V6, metaphor, extended thing. You start learning what happens when you remove things, and that knowledge sticks with you. Okay,
Mhm.
so we removed heat completely. Like there was no heat there for a while, and there's
Right.
and how did that change the game? Oh well, this, they're not spending downtime actions for this, so this economy is affected, and they heal up faster because of that, and like
Right.
Mhm.
so you start learning how to modulate, and then not only like what can be removed, but what can be safely altered, and like how that affects other systems, because everything's so
Mhm.
tightly interwoven in a Forge in the Dark game. They all
Yeah.
kind of all the gears spin each other.
Mhm.
And that's cool because it's kind of perpetual motion, and fiction flows out naturally from it. But I had a place I was going, and now I've lost it. Right. Okay. So perpetual motion, fiction comes out of it, and you can figure out which ones are basically just little helper gears, and how
Yeah.
you can move them and interlock them with other gears to get effects that you're looking for. But it's not something that you can just approach, tear down completely, and then be like, okay, I'm going to take this and put it here, and then this, why not? And we'll put it here,
Right.
and expect it to work. So it's one of those SRDs that is not only kind of unfriendly to read, but it takes a lot of tinkering before you really get mastery over it.
And I feel like you have to play a lot of Blades in the Dark also before you can even
Yes.
tackle the SRD. And playing Blades in the Dark is actually, because of how complex the rule set is, even that is a hurdle. When he first
Yes.
pitched the game to me, I was like, hold on, I got to find some actual plays because I don't understand anything that I'm reading. And I followed the directions. Okay, read the whole book through once before you start guessing. Okay, read the whole book through. I don't understand.
Mhm.
I'm confused.
I didn't understand when I first brought it to the table.
So
There it goes.
I had to go back and find the actual plays from like when they did their Kickstarters. I'm like watching him and Strosh play this game.
Wait,
and
is
I'm
there a murder skill? Where's the
Where's
murder
the
skill?
murder?
I think I'm on my 5th Blades campaign now, and I have sliced so much of what the game is away at least in the introductory first sessions with players, just like we don't need most of this. So I don't have them read the book anymore because it's just not going to help. It's not going to help get to the experience that I ultimately want to try and foster with that game at the table. It is exactly like you said. It's an unbelievably well-oiled machine, and when it gets started, ooh baby, does it just run, and it runs in a really beautiful way.
Mhm.
But you gotta get that momentum, and like it can be rough doing that in the beginning.
The last time I ran a game of Blades, it was for two people who had never played a role-playing game. And they came to the table with like no conception of what they wanted to do. I'm like, okay, here are the playbooks. I printed them out. Go ahead and just pick one that looks interesting.
Right.
And they picked one, and we went through like character creation real briefly. We didn't pick a crew. We didn't do any of the initial setup or anything. We just ran a thing.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, they're like, okay, this is really cool. What else is there? And so
Right.
just over the course of the next couple of games, I'll just spool out information, and things will get more complex as we go. And they loved it,
Right.
but it can be pared back to such a simple degree that it's almost like it's fine if it runs in neutral.
Right.
Yeah, we can run in neutral. Okay, we're going to shift into first.
When I run it, it's all risky standard rolls the whole first session. I don't play it all with positioning or effect in my first
Really?
session. I don't, because it's obviously a hugely important part of the game, but like exactly like you said, I've run it with many people who this is their first time role playing, or it's their first time playing something that's not D&D.
Yeah.
And so like the concept of like dice pools and like rolling a dice pool and picking the highest and having ranges of success, that alone is already like
Is
totally
mind-blowing,
new
yeah.
territory to them, that I don't also want to say, and then those ranges are different depending on if you're in a controlled position, a risky position, or a desperate position. And so I'm like, I don't even tell them that what they're doing is risky standard. I just go, just roll your attune, roll your finesse, and then they
Yeah.
just roll it, and we're like, and then eventually I'm like, so now
Now you tell me what you're rolling.
Right. Right. And then we
Smart. Okay.
and then
And your
we
position, by the way, is just horrifying.
Your position is desperate 0.
yeah, you're in a
Congratulations.
real
You've answered completely
you
wong.
fool.
No,
fell
you
right
cannot
into my
attune the
trap.
gun out of his hand.
You can certainly try, but
You can try. Yeah, we're gonna start. We're gonna have to push yourself. You're
get
gonna need
ready
to
to
get some
mark
help.
all the stress and all the experience for this very, very desperate role.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. How would you like an opportunity to excel?
right. So yes, I think my experience with like the SRD very like and then trying to work with it mimics very much my experience with trying to run the actual game itself with people as well, where it's like it's it's a slog to read through, and I don't understand it until I've like played it mostly.
Mhm.
Like so exactly like you said, once you've played Blades a bunch, you're like, okay, I see how this SRD works. Only because it's just familiar territory to me.
Yeah.
But then
Mhm.
you
Well,
start to see. Oh, go
it
ahead.
becomes almost becomes like another language that you speak. And I find this with a lot of SRDs. The more polyglottal, yeah,
Mhm.
polylingual, polyglottal. I don't remember. Look, English is a hard language. I got
It's
6 of
the
them up here.
worst.
And now all
Six?
the yeah. I was a military linguist for 10 years. Um, but the number of RPG languages now that are sandwiched
Right.
in with the regular ones. You becoming conversant with a bunch of different systems helps you grok other systems faster. I find.
Mhm. You
So
get what
that's
they're getting at. Faster.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why I SRD crawl. So my sincere hope is that everybody eventually just releases everything as an SRD so
Right.
that I can crawl all over it, collect all kinds of shiny mechanics, and everybody else can do the same, and we'll all make all kinds of cool games.
Mhm.
You've activated the cognitive psychologist in me by talking about
Yeah.
how you speak multiple languages and thinking about
Uh-oh.
games as languages. Because so a thing that we see in cognitive psych is what we call the bilingual advantage. So
Mm-hmm.
people who are bilingual or multilingual tend to show advantages in a number of different cognitive tasks, memory,
Neuroplasticity.
recall. Yeah, exactly. So um, it suddenly and like the way that we see that transfer of benefit uh, differs depending on the domain that we're talking about here. And so like it suddenly makes sense to me if we think about rules as like languages that we speak that have Sean. Oh,
Yeah, I'm
Sean.
just
Like
saying that if you publish,
I
just
will. I'm gonna.
give
You'll
me
be
a
cited.
just give me a citation. That's all right.
You'll be second author on this. The Venn diagram of my life, of my psychology life and my design life, has suddenly crossed. Very cool.
Weird.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um. Oh yeah, and yeah, similar thing. Dice goes with programming languages. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um. Well, I'm out of coffee. I don't know if you all are or not either, but I've
Well, you're a
run out.
hummingbird.
Yeah, that's just not fair.
It's not
That's
fair.
not fair. I'll sit up a coffee for like 3 hours. I'm ridiculous.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm dry, but that's all right.
Uh.
You could drive for like 30 minutes.
Yeah. This is just a social gesture anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Wayward Witch, we talked about that a little bit earlier about how they design in different spaces. Grab the VOD.
They miss it.
They did a really good explanation of how that works. Um, well, I'm out of coffee and I'm slowing down. My train is my momentum dies usually about an hour into my streams and stuff. So
Fair enough.
I'm
Yeah.
I feel like this has been a total blast catching up with you.
Absolutely.
And, well, not even catching up. And I think that's why I like this so much. Is this is honestly the first time that the three of us have ever talked to each other, and yet
Face
it,
to face.
Yes.
right
With our
with
our
our
mouth
faces
words.
and our real words.
Making meat noises at each other.
But it feels like catching up, and that's why I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me. This has been very
Heck yeah.
was a
very
blast.
cool. Is there anything else that you've like it's been like itching in your mind? Because like I'm slowing down, but if there's something that you've got that you're like, hey Spencer, what about this thing? What do you got? Is there anything like that?
Now I'm on the spot.
I know.
I
Kinda clever on
know
the
that was
spot.
We were
cruel
all
of
just
me.
rapping before.
I
I
know.
know.
We basically pulled the brakes real quick, and it's like, hey, did you want to restart that real
Yeah,
quick?
that was a mistake.
It's cold.
Man, and just a second ago, I probably could have thought of something, but now I figured that we were approaching sign off, so I think I might be dry as well.
That's
It
fair.
might be time for another cup of coffee.
There it is. That's what it is. What are you working on today?
Today I've got a little bit of our official zine that I am finishing up. So I've got a couple more starting situations because every house of the Esultare gets their own little newspaper section that has what's going on in the city for quick start.
And I'm starting layout on that one.
And you're starting
That's
layout
my
on
job
that.
for the day.
And then I'm going to be doing Dark Bargain. So
Nice.
I've got our sigil drawing, solo journaling, you know, card and dice, weird masters of the universe using mortal agents to go and advance their wills. So that's going to be pretty fun.
Give it to
Yeah,
me.
I mean, you know, getting to draw your summoning sigil piece by piece as you finish
Mhm.
beats for your great old one or
I'm
your
looking forward to
dragon
that
or
one.
whatever
Beats,
is going to be
you
really cool.
say?
Beats, I
Mhm.
say, yeah. So that's coming after I finish the about 600 words that I need to finish out the Court of Blade stuff, and then that's gets to be, you know,
Cool.
Keith is asking where you get your ideas from because he missed my brainworm segment.
brainworms. Yeah, I get them from the brainworms. The
Mhm.
brainworms.
I sit there and I harass him about things I think are cool, just
Mhm.
nonstop, until they like stick in his head and he
Uh-huh.
thinks they're his ideas.
Yeah.
And then he goes and starts working on them, and I'm like, ah.
But,
he
but
comes to you with this. I had this brilliant idea, and you just
I
sit there
know.
Came to me in a
quietly
dream.
smiling to yourself, like,
Yeah.
Beautiful.
nobody knows. No, spite, coffee, and folklore for the most part
Mhm.
is where most of them come from.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
Well, cool. It sounds like you've got a fun day of stuff to tinker with.
Always
Yeah.
forward is forward, man.
That's awesome. That's
Trying to
very
catch
cool.
up to you guys.
Chug, chug,
Chug,
chug,
chug,
chug.
chug. That's what we're about here. Chugging an unhealthy amount of caffeine as quickly as we can.
That's how I stay alive.
That's where the ideas come from. Why wouldn't we?
Well, folks, this has been a blast.
Mhm.
Thank you so much to the Drakes for coming on and chatting with me. I really do appreciate it. Do you have like links and stuff, or like because I can pull it up and throw it in chat if you want people to. Where can people find you or your stuff?
Yeah, let me pull up the link real quick.
She's gonna get a link real quick. But if
Mhm.
you guys aren't following us on Twitter, which I'm fairly certain most of you are,
Mm-hmm.
I'm at Drake and Dice. She's at Navi Musing, and he's at Gila RPGs.
I am. That's true.
How did you find us if you don't know that?
Oh my god. I threw the itch page and the Twitters right
Oh,
there.
look at you. Get out of
Dude.
here. I can't deal with you. You're so fast.
Man.
I'm over here like typing, not
I'm
even
a
noticing it's all
professional.
there.
It's like
Look
you've been
at
doing
you.
this for a while, and we're just some chumps who came on your show.
Oh, that is another thing that I'm currently working on is we're getting our website up and running.
Yeah.
So a couple of drakes.com will be live again in a few weeks. So that is coming back. It was dead for a while and people started to panic. They're like, I can't find anything. I'm like, I know. I needed a faster host. My host was really tragic. Like they were so slow. I had the website streamlined to where it was just bare bones and it was still taking like 20 seconds
And we
or
couldn't
so to load.
We couldn't attach anything over 2 megabytes.
And you couldn't
so-
attach anything over. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I'd been using it for years with that problem. So I contacted. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, oh, you just need to try this minify thing, this little add-on that'll make everything even smaller. I'm like, dude, this couldn't get any smaller. We gotta have a conversation. They wouldn't work with me, so I just switched.
Away they go.
Anyways, we were signing off, and I went on a tangent, but the website is coming back, and yes, that was the whole reason for the season is that that my host sucked, but it'll be new and improved, and I think we'll have some really cool articles about like game design going up as well as talking about not just playing story games. So that'll be fun.
Spencer, I've been terrible. What are you working on today?
Yeah, no kidding.
Don't worry about me.
Like, what are you working on today?
Shit, what am I working on?
Is it a Bones Day or a No Bones Day?
It's a Bones Day. It is a
Okay,
Bones
well,
Day. I did wake
being-
up. I
being
woke up ready
Bones.
to go. Let's see here. I've been tinkering with Drifter's layout, and I've been having
Okay.
a lot of fun with that. So I'm going to do a little bit of Drifter's layout, and then
I need my enchanted revolvers. I need those.
we all do. And then I need to get a playtest scheduled for the faction turn. That's my next thing is getting a group together for that. And then I have another project I'm doing commission work for that I don't think I can talk about yet. So
Ah.
I
We
know,
got stuff
I
we
know.
can't talk about too. So
yeah,
that's
very cool, very cool.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's cool. We've reached the level of we have
I
stuff
know.
we can't talk about.
getting very, very close
I
to having
know.
to take us seriously now.
Oh, it's danger.
I finally have that's the point that I wanted to reach where people are like, hey, actually, do you want to write for my thing? I'm like, people like me. People like me enough
Yes.
that I can write for them. So I'm very excited about that.
Yes, a lot.
But neither of these projects has been like formally announced yet. So I've gotta.
Right.
I'll just sit on it and then like scream about it because I'm very excited about both of these projects. But I'll scream
Look
about
forward
them
to
when I get a
screaming.
chance.
I
Yeah,
know. I'm excited about projects that other people are excited about.
Me too.
it's contagious.
Okay. This is the longest sign off ever. We
I
should
It's
know.
probably go.
12 hours
This is
later.
pretty
Everybody's
classic.
like, are we staying? Are
This
we
is
leaving?
classic
We
for
don't
me. Yeah.
Right.
Well, wonderful.
Mhm.
Folks, make sure you follow the Drakes. The links are in the chat. Thank you all so much. I'll be doing Coffee Break again next Sunday. I have the wonderful Adam Bell, good friend of mine. Adam is
Yeah.
going to be here. He's on the cusp of releasing his game Grasping Nettles, which I am like so excited about. A very cool like uh, generational storytelling game.
Mhm.
And so Adam and I are going to chat about that.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Oh man, I
That'll be
can't
great.
wait.
I know I'm here every Sunday. I lurk a lot, but I'm here.
I love it. I appreciate the lurkers. And then the Sunday after that, I'll probably not be here because I've made the irresponsible choice to drive out to PAX. So
Yeah. Live a little.
Mhm.
I'm going
Isn't
to.
that like right after like a work day too?
It's
Oh.
the very end of the semester for me. So
Oh no, and that's
Awesome.
that's a drive for you too. Isn't it like a 12-hour drive?
it
or something
is,
like that?
it is. But
Oh.
I'm picking up Adam Vass on the way, World Champ Game
Nice.
Co. So Adam and I are
Mhm.
friends, and they're up in Michigan. So gonna drive
Oh,
his
so it's
car
even
down.
longer. You're...
Leave it. No, I'm not going up to Michigan. He's gonna come down.
Oh, good,
Oh.
good.
I'm gonna then
Oh,
I'm gonna
God.
get him, and then I'm going to drive on. So no, I'm not going to go. Woo! That would be a
First, we're
harder.
gonna go to Kalamazoo.
Yeah,
and then
why not?
Oh, I'm so jealous. I haven't been to a convention in years.
Get a
I'm
pasty.
jealous for you. Take pictures. Lots
I
of
will take pictures. I will finally
Let
get
us
to
live
play test
vicariously from you.
my card game that has been sitting in my box for the last 2 years that I haven't been able to play test because of all of
Everything.
this.
The
So it'll be
various this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, wonderful. Exactly like you said, we've been saying goodbye for like 10 minutes now, so
11 now.
nice. Excellent. Well, appreciate again your time. You both are wonderful. Everything you make is also wonderful. Please go support the Drakes. Throw your dollars at them. Throw your follows at them. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever it is you are, folks, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.